This chapter is very confusing. Some verses are wisdom, most forgets free will. Chapter could be used by the arrogant to confuse followers. NPR 242. He rolled the grain, and lo, it became the food of men. He dismembered the destroyer in olden times. He made daylight for the joy of man, and darkness for his tranquility. Men cry to him in their distress, and he suffers with them. The destroyer is mentioned often in the books of the Egyptian text. It mentions pillars as well. The destroyer is assumed in space, and it is an asteroid or possibly something more. It clearly was big enough to cause massive damage. This time, however, it mentions the destroyer was dismembered, and this would imply that the threat is ended, but I point to something mentioned in earlier chapters. Chapter 3 talks of a dragon in the sky. Verse 6 mentions, at first it was one, and then it was followed by a second. Could the asteroid have broken? It said many bladed swords of God. It could be lightning, and these dragons enlarged the land. Book 1, Creation, chapter 3:13 says a moon had been taken away when the chaos ended. Could this be referred to by the destroyer was dismembered? Could the second moon have been in a more chaotic orbiting, causing far more chaos? It's mentioned in other chapters that the hours of the day had changed. It could be same, and this refers to the raining debris from the so-called second moon. It refers to it as God bringing lightning, but in chapter 3 it was called a dragon. And then followed by a second that was attacked by the many-bladed swords of God, and that I thought could be lightning. This chapter mentions lightning. Heat was increased. It mentioned it caused the land to tear, bringing a rain of stones or brimstone. It could mean volcanic activity. It is mentioned in all the chapters. The pillars implies a pair to me, at least, and it is implied there had been two moons. Once the destruction happened, there was one. Clearly it is implied something hit the second moon and either knocked both the second moon and itself into the gravitational pull of Earth. We understand the moon we have affects the tides, and it causes the Earth to wobble. The second moon, if it also caused a pull of its own, then its absence could affect the tilt or spin, maybe slow it. So the hours become longer. Seasons for growing might change, but does this verse imply the destroyer is gone, never to return? Was it an asteroid, or was the destroyer the second moon? And that its path was irregular, so when it was at its closest swing, it caused chaos, but once it was destroyed and only one moon, it was easier to predict things, like seasons on Earth. And if that is the case, if the Earth spin is less chaotic, could that imply the reason why areas that had been fertile is today barren? The rain was hitting in more diverse areas because of the second moon's pull. It caused rain to reach many more areas, but with its loss, then some areas received less air, less weather. And this might have made the ice caps possible. Could it have been a new phenomenon because the second moon had kept the moon's wobble so fast the weather was constant all over, but with just one moon, there was no longer the pull, so the spin slowed, only getting a pull from the sun and the one moon. It is assumed that a meteor hit, possibly near the Yucatan Peninsula. This brought on the Ice Age. That is at least the theory. But was the meteor from the second moon that was hit, or a meteor? And this caused the breakup and the big portion hit in that area. Just how much change would happen if we had a second moon? What would the orbit be, and how would that moon play against our moon and the sun on Earth? A loss of the one of those elements would be severe, but what would have been normal when there had been two? Could the second moon have been the destroyer that returned? Does it even need to be a second moon? I mean, it is implied generations of man passes between its return, so it could be the so-called pillar. It's a planet or a big meteor, after all, that is in a path with ours that intersects, but not seen often. If that's the case, why say it was dismembered? Does dismembered imply it was destroyed or only a portion hit the Earth? after its collision with the second moon, and so what's left is expected to return. Just how might it have changed after the collision? It might have pushed the remainder into a far wider route and might never return, or might return, but not in the same time frame or cause as much damage. Its size will affect the pull on Earth, most likely, and it would be the pull that would cause the Earth's stress. So, how much a threat is this returned visitor if it is even coming back? Just some options and ideas.